Catalina, Arkansas, the little metropolis, central part of the state, and now joined by Grayson Grundhoefer, who's not in Waco. I mean, this is an international show today. I mean, we're going all around. We had Luke Boyd from Waco. We've got you from Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin.
Yeah, Austin. Yeah.
Grayson from Austin. We've got Coach Michael Woodson will be joining us this afternoon from Orlando. So everybody's everywhere. But Grayson, man, it's been a big week. I'd say big 24 hours really for Baylor football in general. And dating back to when we talked last week, so much has happened, so much has changed, and sounds like Baylor's gotten their guy on the offensive line out of the transfer portal.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacob Gall out of Buffalo. I mean, this is a big time pickup right here, Drake. I mean, we've talked about how they needed to add some talent on the offensive line. They had to, and they were going to. I mean, it was just a fact. They were going to go out and add an offensive lineman, and I think they're not done yet. I know they got Gall, but I still think there's names out there that they're going to continue to go after. But this was a huge one this week, actually yesterday, when it officially dropped that he was going to be a Baylor Bear, and now he's got 10 days to get to the campus from Cincinnati. He was moving out his final stuff when I talked to him today. He was driving back from Buffalo to Cincinnati. So he's got a lot going on right now.
Grayson, what is that timeline? If you're looking at where the Baylor football coaches want to be with bringing guys in, I mean, you're looking at summer 1, summer 2, things like that they've got going on with not just workouts, but classes as well, and getting those guys enrolled in those summer classes. When you're looking at Baylor going into the transfer portal, what is that timeline for when they want to bring another guy in if they do?
I mean, they would like to do it within these next 10, 11. It's really they would like to have everyone on campus when the players are supposed to, which is over that weekend. And then, of course, workouts in summer 1, the classes start as well. It becomes a lot trickier when you have to bring in a guy in the middle of summer. I think they would if they found the right guy, but I think ideally you would want to get this done in the next 10 days. I know Jacob told me he was thinking about waiting another 5 days, but then just decided that Baylor was the spot for him and decided to do it a little bit earlier. So there's still a long way to go. I mean, we still got 10 days to figure out what, they got 10 days to figure out what they want to do. And so there's still some time.
Grayson, along with Gall announcing he would come to Baylor, committing to Baylor, really, what kind of win is that recruiting-wise for Dave Aranda, Eric Mateos, and Jeff Grimes? I mean, he's, as we've seen, rated the number 1 left guard in the country. Who else was going after Gall? Is this a game where Baylor put up with the big dogs and won?
Yeah, so I think everyone was asking that, and it's hard with the transfer portal. Some guys will post their offers, but most do not. They usually are very quiet in that regard. They just kind of go through their recruitment and pick the schools. But Jacob was really honest with me. He did tell me that he probably had 5, 6 offers, but you also have to remember he kind of basically turned down communication from other schools as well. But I can tell you Big 10, Pac-12 type schools were going after him. So this was a win against Power 5 schools, and also it was just kind of a win for Baylor from a recruiting perspective. Eric Mateos built such a good relationship with him, and honestly, that for him as their priority target really made this decision very easy for him, and was another reason why he decided not to really stay in contact with some of the programs that were just kind of hanging around a little bit.
Grayson, on that, when I look at a guy like Gall, I'm seeing that 90 grade that he's gotten and being the top left guard in the country. Walk me through that rating, because when I think top left guard in the country, I think, all right, which SEC school does he play for? Maybe one of those power Big 10 schools, an ACC, Big 12, probably not Pac-12. But along with all of that, I'm seeing Buffalo. This guy's the number one rated guard in the country from Buffalo. Where does that assessment come from? Is that maybe inflated, or is that a true ranking for Jacob Gall?
Yeah, so I do want to pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, obviously that's an amazing ranking and all of that, but he did play at Buffalo. He did offensive line who had 3 all-conference players next to him. So, I mean, they were loaded. They were really, really good. I think they lost 1 game. I think they went 6-1. So, I mean, they were dynamic, very good on offense. But I will say, when you have a lot of talent next to you, that really helps everyone on the offensive line. I would also say, yes, his competition was not Alabama. His competition was not Ohio State. So yes, that does affect things. But the grade does come from the fact that he put himself in the right positions more times than not to either move people in the run game or just be effective in pass protection. So he did a lot of things really, really well that went into that grade. And really the biggest thing is all positioning and what you did in your individual matchups and your team matchups that allowed your offense to move efficiently.
Grayson, Jake Burton is a guy who's now, right there in the pro football ranks and tested all that out in the last couple of months. When he came to Baylor, it was so late in the process, and it was all right, this guy was good at UCLA. He's got a legit shot to be good at Baylor and help anchor the offensive line, and it didn't really pan out. There was never that moment where you're like, wow, well, that really worked out. It really went well for Baylor. What is the difference in a guy like Jacob Gall compared to a Jake Burton where you think, oh, man, he's going to be really good, and you just don't quite see it?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not going to put it all on Jake Burton. I actually think most of it, and this is just a personal opinion, I think we saw what happened last year. Last year was a little bit of a train wreck offensively, and I would say that Wickline to Mateos is a huge upgrade. I would say that Fedora to Grimes is a huge upgrade. And so for me, that's where my confidence is with this move. I think Jacob Gall's a great player. I think Jake Burton was a very good player. I mean, he was picked up by the New York Giants, so he's in the league. He can play, make no mistake about that. I mean, if you look at the other Baylor offensive linemen in the past, many of them did not even get picked up. So he had the talent. It just didn't all come together from a coaching staff perspective, in my opinion. So I have a lot more confidence in what Mateos and Grimes are going to do. I think that another big key and big positive is the fact that at Buffalo, they ran a similar version of the wide zone. I wouldn't call it exactly the same, but I would say that the run scheme is going to be very similar. And I think that comfortability will be big for him. And I also think people are missing on the fact that this guy was a center in high school. He was also the backup center all 4 years at Buffalo. And the only reason he played guard was because of an injury to a guy and the fact that they had a veteran center in Mike Nowitzki, who's one of the biggest names in the transfer portal right now. So, I mean, he feels very comfortable. He actually told me he feels more comfortable at center than left guard. And coming off the season he just had, I think that's a pretty big statement.
Grayson, with that, Grant Miller. I mean, I know that there's been the conversation of Grant Miller now being center for Baylor because they need a guy. Like we have a really good offensive lineman. We got to convert him to a center. What could this move mean for Grant Miller?
Yeah, so, I look at size a lot with offensive linemen, and it usually tells a story. And for me, Jacob Gall is 6'2", 305 pounds. That is a center. That is a center. That is prototypical center height. Obviously could be taller, could be a little bit bigger for sure. But 305 is not typically a guard. Whereas you look at Grant Miller, 6'4", I think he's hovering around 315 now. So he has a little more size to play that guard position. I know he came to Baylor. I think you're just about, and if it's better 2 minutes to go with.
Grayson, I think we're losing a little bit of connection there with you trying to get that back. I think we should. Hopefully we can see you now, but it got you a little bit better. I know it's reloading. And Grayson, I don't know if you can hear me, like 3 fingers up or something. You got me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Beautiful. I think we can hear you now.
So I got you.
With that, the dynamic of this offensive line next year, when you think about your before I get into that even, you talked about the wide zone at Buffalo and the fact that, Jacob Gall really knows basically the offense Baylor is going to be in next season and is used to it already. Along with that, JD made the point a couple weeks ago how he didn't think Baylor should get a transfer offensive lineman, which I wholeheartedly disagreed with, but it was because you'd have to teach a scheme, teach an offense, teach a guy. But it seems like Jacob Gall is going to fit in perfect when it comes to really knowing what he's getting into scheme-wise.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a big positive, not only for Baylor, but also for him. And he mentioned that was a huge part in his decision going to Baylor, is just how comfortable he was going to be with the offense and the scheme. And after talking to Mateos and Grimes and Aranda, he felt very comfortable with Baylor. And honestly, based on what I heard, I mean, this really was not a tough decision for him. It was I would honestly say the tougher decision was between going back to Buffalo or going to Baylor. I think that was in his mind probably the tougher decision, because it took him a while to enter after Leipold made the move to Kansas.
And then Grayson, when you think about the structure of the offensive line going into next season as it sits right now, with your now Jacob Gall, you've got, we've already talked about, Grant Miller, what he brings to the table. Those two guys are obviously the names that for me stick out the most. When you think about putting together a starting five, obviously it looks better now with Jacob Gall, but it sounds like there's still a lot of work to do.
I would say that. I mean, the positions that I see are pretty. So I guess in my opinion, Connor Galvin will be the starter at left tackle. I think that Jacob Gall and Grant Miller will be starters. It's just a matter of which position. Right now, I think Gall's going to, and I think Grant Miller's going to be one of the guards, probably the left. It's two positions kind of open, and kind of is a kind word for it, because nobody has really laid claim to either of those spots. I would say if you were starting today, right tackle would either be Gavin Byers or Elijah Ellis. I would probably go with Byers right now. Young guys there. And then at right guard, I mean, I told the guys on the 3 to 6 show this. I mean, you could literally throw 3-4 names in a hat and just kind of pick, because that's what it was all spring between Xavier Newman, Giancarlo Valentin, Khalil Keith, Mose Jeffrey. I mean, who wants it? I mean, whoever wants it has a great shot at getting it. The problem is Baylor might bring in another guy to compete with them and take that spot. So there's a lot to through still. I could see them taking another interior offensive lineman. I know a big one entered the portal today that they're probably going to have some interest in. And then, of course, right tackle, which is a position I still feel like they need to address.
Grayson, with that, I mean, as the line starts to come together, you said there's already 3 or 4 names in the hat for that other guard spot. If you bring somebody in that's starting caliber to Baylor, I mean, is there a need for that? Is the competition going to drive those guys to the point where they can perform at a high rate in the Big 12, or does Baylor need one more to bolster the offensive line?
I think they need one more. I would go with right tackle. I think that's the position that I would address immediately as the top priority. But truthfully, if you can go into the portal and find a guy who has 1 year play immediately, I would probably do it. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that group quite yet. I just haven't seen it consistently enough. And I think that a guy like Mose Jeffrey is maybe 1 year away. I think and he might even have to play tackle some. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this, but if you can find a guy who is a high quality individual and a high quality player, I think you have to make that move, especially if it's just for 1 year.
So, Grayson, you have followed the transfer portal and really recruiting closer than I would say anyone. I'm going to say it, anyone. With that, when you give me a blank, tie it all with a bow assessment of Jacob Gall's coming to Baylor, where do you rate Jacob Gall as a player, how he'll fit in? And where do you rate this from a Baylor standpoint, thinking about coaches, recruiting, them bringing him in when you compare him to others in the transfer portal?
Yeah. Transfer portal. I think that you have to start with the guys that they missed on. Drake, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Start that thought over for me if you
will. Perfect. Yes, I will. So if you're looking through the portal, they obviously had a lot of names that came up, and I actually went through a little list. I made a list for tomorrow. I have an article that's coming up on the website of just the guys that they missed on and where those guys ended up. It's just crazy how much talent was in the portal up to this point this year. Every single target Baylor went at. 1 year. 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 1
One more time, Grayson.
They really went hard in the transfer portal.
There you go. Now you're back.
You got me? Okay.
I got you.
Okay, cool. So I got who Baylor went after, guys who they really had a lot of interest in. And, for Baylor, as far as what they needed, it's an A+ because they had to get an offensive lineman from the portal. It was an absolute necessity. It had to happen. As far as rating him with the guys that they went after at the guard position, he's right up near the top. I have two guys that I think are a little bit ahead of him. Eric Wilson, who I don't know if you remember him. He was the Harvard transfer. He ended up at Penn State. I have him graded a little bit higher than Gall. And then he was really the main one because the other ones are tackles. And to me, tackles are slightly more valuable. I usually hold them a little bit higher. But yeah, outside of Eric Wilson, Gall is right there with him. And that tells you right there that this is an A pickup, A+ pickup, however you want to describe it, for where he rated compared to the guys in the portal. And then, of course, the pickup for Baylor. I mean, this is a home run. And the fact that he knows this wide zone scheme already, I think could make this an even bigger deal. And just talking to him, I think he's going to instill a lot of confidence on this Baylor offensive line. And he's played with a group that really came together. And I think he's going to try to do that at Baylor. And I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table from a confidence standpoint, from a team standpoint, and from a talent standpoint.
Grayson, outside of the transfer portal and being able to bring in Jacob Gall, you got the commitment of Richard Reese to come to Baylor. And I don't know your assessment, or my assessment is he's the fastest man that has ever lived. All the videos and things that I've seen on Twitter out there, I mean, this guy has got legit speed. And is this Baylor's answer at running back in 2022?
Yeah, he is the answer for the class in 2022 for sure. And, it's interesting because when I see his film, I actually don't see the fastest guy on the field. He's fast, obviously, but I think the bigger thing that I see with him is really two things. He has an ability to put his foot in the ground and attack holes when he sees them. So he doesn't bounce plays the outside. He's not trying to go LaDainian Tomlinson on you and get, run around guys because he's just so fast. He finds the hole and then explodes through the hole, which is really, really something this offense needs. And then the other part of his game that I love is his closing speed. So what I mean by that is, he hits the hole hard. And then he's fast through, don't get me wrong, but it's those last 10 yards. He just has a great ability to run by people. And that's a credit to, in my opinion, his 200-meter time. He'd actually have the second highest 200-meter time on the current roster for Baylor running backs. The only one he'd be behind is Treston Ebner, which kind of makes sense. So very fast in that regard, that closing speed. But like I said, they need guys who are going to attack the line of scrimmage, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Very big pickup, offensive MVP, 2 straight years in his district, and a guy who has just piled up numbers at Belleville. And as Craig mentioned, he's the bell cow from Belleville. I mean, it's a great line, and it's exactly what he is.
Grayson, when you analyze him and that 3-star ranking that he's got and what he's done at Belleville, his numbers are unbelievable. You look at a guy like Reese and what he brings to the program. Is he a starting caliber running back when he gets to that senior season at Baylor?
Yeah, I think he could be sooner than that. I think he'll probably redshirt his first year. Not probably. He almost definitely will. Redshirt freshman year probably won't. But that redshirt sophomore season, I could see him getting carries. It's just going to be tough, because the guy ahead of him that I really, really like, Jordan Jenkins is coming in this offseason. He's a guy. It's quite battle, and I'm excited for going forward. I think it's going to be a really talented one.
Grayson, with that, I'm looking up and down the commit list of 2022 and what Baylor's already built up there. 11 guys now, Reese being the 11th. When you rank, 1 through 11, really, where does Reese, in your opinion, kind of fall amongst the recruits that Baylor's gotten so far out of 2022?
Ooh, that's a very good question. So I pretty much have all the guys ranked according to our SicEm365 rankings, and I gave Reese an 88 is where I have him currently at, which puts him right around tied with Bryce Simpson, Zach Pyron, Carmelo Jones, Kelsey Johnson. They're all tied for third. The top two on my list right now are Cedric Roberts, the big defensive lineman from Pflugerville-Hendrickson, and then Kyan Roberts-Day, the 4-star out of Missouri, Joplin, Missouri. Those two guys, in my opinion, are a little bit above the rest right now, but there will be movement. As I get to see these guys in person at camps and get to see senior film, of course, there will be movement there. But right now, I got him as an 88, which is very, very good. High 3-star. That's right where you want to be your year.
Grayson, I saw a few tweets out there over this past week that were centered around Zach Pyron, and it was the, Jeff Grimes and company, they took a shot on somebody, and maybe they found a diamond in the rough in Zach Pyron and getting him to come to Baylor and commit to Baylor. Really, where did that hype come from, and is it warranted?
Yeah, it definitely is warranted. So it came from the Elite 11 camp. Huge. It's highly acclaimed for quarterbacks. It goes on every single year. Of course, the goal is to get an Elite 11 finals invite, which currently Baylor has 3 guys on their roster who have gotten that invite: Jacob Zeno, Gary Bohannon, and of course, Kyron Drones last year. And Kyron is actually the only one who made the final 11 of the group so far. So that's the goal for Zach Pyron. He went out there, he competed, and the big name that he competed against was Ty Simpson, who's the Alabama commit, the 5-star. Listen, I'm not going to throw shade at Ty Simpson. That guy is insanely talented, and if Baylor could have gotten him, they would have gotten him too. He got offers from everybody, but Pyron went out there and held his own. And for a guy who was an 85 rated 3-star, that just wasn't expected by a lot of these recruiting guys. And, I have him as an 88, which I think is pretty fair. When you look at his offer list and then the talent level that he played against his first 2 years, but this third year going into his senior year, he seems to have really risen in his game and his production. He showed up 6'3", 218 pounds at this camp. He continues to look more and more like Sam Ehlinger, except a little bit taller. And it's very, very interesting to see. He continues to make throws and impress people. And that's what he did this weekend. He competed, made all the throws. And at the end of the day, I think there's a pretty good shot that he's going to get that Elite 11 invite, which is a huge deal. And then he can go try to put on a show at the Elite 11 finals and continue rising his ranking. And it's a huge deal. It's an absolutely huge deal to have the national attention like that. And also he let me know he will be early enrolling. So big news there for Baylor as well.
Wow. Bring it on with Zach Pyron coming in, I guess, next January. And Grayson, when I look at programs like Oklahoma and Alabama, there's typically a quarterback in waiting. You don't usually see a quarterback battle, at least we haven't in the last decade or so, maybe once at Alabama. And I know I'm comparing huge programs, but looking at Baylor, now you got your Zeno, Bohannon, Shapen, Drones, add Zach Pyron into the mix. And even there was the walk-on from, I'm forgetting.
CJ Rogers out of Argyle.
Right, CJ Rogers. You've got, that's 6 names, and then Bass, I guess, 2, 7 names. Give you 7 guys that are all in the quarterback room or will be in the quarterback room over the course of the next 2 years. Is that too much? What's your, it's a weird problem to have, but what do you do when you have that many guys and only one can be a starter?
Yeah, so there's going to be, in my opinion, 2 things that either happen. Either you're going to see attrition on the Baylor roster after this fall at the quarterback position, or you will see them not take a quarterback in the 2023 class, because that's just too many guys to have on the roster. There's a chance CJ Rogers gets and he does I don't see any way you could take a quarterback in the 2023 class. So there's a lot to figure out there. I think we're going to know a lot more after we see who wins the quarterback job this fall. And that's where I think a lot of the answers will come. And that's where we're going to have to find out a lot about this team. I will say, though, as the offensive line gets better and better, I think we're going to get a chance to see this quarterback battle heat up even more. I think it's going to be a very interesting one that will carry up until the first game of the year, probably.
Grayson, outside of that, I saw another blurb of 2022, just kind of a splash of 2022 offers that Baylor put out this last week across Twitter since the last time we talked even. And anything there you kind of want to touch on or that we need to know here in recruiting when it comes to the high school ranks?
Yeah, it's actually, really early in a lot of the recruitments for some of the guys that they put out offers to. I would say the main one that I know they put out an offer to was Alessandro Lorenzetti, which was he was a big man out of Connecticut, 6'6", 275. It's interesting to see them go out of the state and put out an offer like that, but they need offensive linemen. So they're going to go offer anyone who's worthy of one. He has 2 official visits already scheduled. I believe those 2 are to Indiana and Oklahoma State or no, I'm sorry. It's Virginia Tech and Michigan State are the 2 that he's got official visits scheduled to. Interestingly enough, though, he does not have one scheduled for the 25th through the 27th. Now that is one of Baylor's official visit dates. So there could be something going on there where he does take a visit. Obviously that would give them another name to keep an eye on moving forward. But outside of him, I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot of movement, I wouldn't say, in the 2022 class just yet. I think we're going to know more probably in the next couple weeks as official visits start getting lined up and they start to get to know the coaching staff even more. But Lorenzetti was probably the big one, and he does have interest in Baylor. He said it was a huge offer, mentioned that a visit could be possible. So we'll see what happens. Being from Connecticut, that's not normally an area that Baylor recruits very, very well outside of when Matt Rule was the coach.
Maybe that's the one, Grayson. Maybe that's the one. The Connecticut's new pipeline state. If you can find enough guys out of there, looking across and kind of away from football and recruiting, tennis, man. Men's tennis. We got Coach Michael Woodson coming up here and Alex Gruskin, national analyst, joining us here in a second. Baylor tennis is rolling right now. Yeah, they absolutely are. And they've been fun to watch. Michael Woodson, what else can you say about that guy? What a year that they've been able to have. They're just so solid, such a deep roster. You look at them in those 5-6 matchups. They are just nearly unbeatable there. So it's been really, really cool to watch them continue to grow throughout the season. This is a big one, though. Taking on TCU, probably your biggest rival. This is going to be fun to watch tomorrow. I'm excited. I think that Baylor's excited. I know that the score's 2-1, I believe. I think TCU got him in indoor. Baylor got him the 2 times in outdoor, but they were pretty good matchups, pretty much all 3 of those times. So I expect this one to be a good one, but I think Baylor comes out on top 4-2. Then I think they take on Tennessee in the semifinals. And I think they're going to win that one, and then they're going to knock off Florida in the national championship. I think Baylor's going to run the table, and Michael Woodson, man, if he wins a national championship year 1, wow. What else could you say about the guy? Jeez, bring home another national championship. Keeping the roster together with coaching turnover and being able to build something like this is wild for Michael Woodson in year number 1 as the head man. I say year number 1. He's been the head guy for like 2 weeks. Yeah. And he's already on the cusp of a possible national championship. But Grayson, outside of the men's golf team, I don't know if you saw that, but they've got the lead. 18th hole comes up. University of Arkansas, Little Rock. Every guy on the team birdies the 18th hole. Every single guy birdies the 18th hole. Baylor golf 1 spot out of going to the NCAA championships after losing the Stillwater Regional to, out of nowhere, Arkansas, Little Rock.
Yeah, I saw the final score. I did not know how it happened. So that's pretty crazy to see how it ended up. I was really bummed to see Baylor not make it to the national championship. It was such an up and down year for that team. They just started so high, it felt like. Same with the women's golf team. They started extremely high as well. Bummed to see this happen, but hey, it's golf. It's golf, and golf is a tricky game, that's for sure.
It's golf. Anything can happen in golf. And Grayson, last but not least, before we get you out of here, Lollapalooza just announced its lineup going into July 29th to August 1st is when it'll happen in Grant Park in Chicago. And Surfaces, Forest, they're going to be there, Lollapalooza. What do you say we get tickets and take a little SicEm365 trip on the company's ticket to Lollapalooza?
Oh man, if Colt is down for that, I'm definitely ready to go up to Lollapalooza. I was hoping Surfaces would actually come to ACL coming up at the in October. But yeah, that's really cool. I know Forrest is a grade younger than me. He was actually my wife's grade at Baylor, but yeah, a lot of my friends know him, and I mean, they've really blown up. So really cool. Hopefully they come to ACL as well. That would be a lot of fun for sure.
Oh, I hope so. Him and JD are borderline roommates, I think. So apparently Forrest listens to the show too. So maybe, hey, we give him some free plug and shout out there with Surfaces. But Grayson, Bear Games question of the day today. You can take one Baylor team, one program on vacation with you. Which program are you taking and where are you taking them?
Wow. Oh, that's a good one. I think I'm going to go with football. And the reason I know everyone's like, oh, how basic, whatever.
So many guys too. Where are you? How?
I know, but Drake, you have to remember, man, when you're covering recruiting, I know those guys a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that's been that would be a big part of it, is that I know a lot of the guys already on the roster. Yes, it'd be a lot of people, but man, would that be a good time? I mean, that would be a good time, a crazy time, lots of guys there. But yeah, I'm going football. I think that would be a lot of fun. What did you pick? How'd you answer this?
I still haven't gone yet. I think the song leader team is a pretty easy answer, or just the all girl cheer team, but I'll probably avoid those just for being cliche. Where are you taking the football team with you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've been kind of craving a beach. So how about Hawaii? Because I don't think not many people have been to Hawaii in a while. So how about Hawaii? That's going to be an expensive trip.
Hawaii with the Baylor football team. I'm sure the ops guys will help cover it for you. Hopefully so, at least. Grayson, thanks for coming on the show today, as always, for the big board. And pleasure talking recruiting outside of that, golf and a little bit of tennis as well. But Jacob Gall coming to Waco. Thanks for helping us break it down. Absolutely, Drake. Big time pickup for the Bears. Boom. I love it. Always a pleasure, Grayson, and look forward to doing it again next week. Absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah. All right. That was Grayson Grundhoefer of SicEm365.com talking some recruiting, talking Baylor and